It's Michelle from Tape and Twine or Creative Cottage Studio. I'm kind of known for both names, depending on whether you follow me for polymer clay or for art journals or altered books or mixed media. I am here today to share one of my most favorite projects I've ever done, a project that was inspired by Nik the Booksmith. And I have to say a big thank you to Nik, because not only was the project inspiring, but the 12 episodes, what to me was better than binge watching something on Netflix. I was waking up every morning checking to see if the next episode was up, and if you know me, anything that gets me out of bed and gets me going is a good thing. I mean, coffee is really the only thing that all these years has had laid claim to fame for that, except for that series, which I happen to adore. So if you haven't checked it out, go to Nik the Booksmith, her Instagram, and check it out. I'll put the link in the bottom of this video because I think everybody should watch it. It's just excellent. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling and I don't want to ramble too long. So here's my version. Many people have taken her project and have now made their own lap books and have been inspired. And this is my contribution to that community. So I started with an old encyclopedia made by Funk and Waggles. And hey, don't you just want to laugh every time you say that name? It's just bizarre. But anyway, this set of encyclopedias I just was inherited from my in-laws, and I believe it was a grocery store encyclopedia. In other words, you could get it with points like we do dishes and bakeware and things like that. So it's not the largest of encyclopedias. As you know, encyclopedias are generally these giant volumes of things, and these really weren't. This was really about the size of it. I don't have really any more. I've cut them all up and recycled the covers because I think I'm going to make some kits with them. But I saved the dictionary so you can kind of see the size. Actually, what is the size? So you can get a little bit of a perspective on how big mine is. So it is 9 inches by like 9 by 6, which is a rather large book, but it's pretty standard within the junk journal community. So not giant, especially for a lap book. So I took one book and I gutted it. And then I took another book and I cut the covers off. And I essentially took the covers and put them like this. And then that essentially was the skeleton of my lap book. So let me put these away because you don't want to see these ugly books anymore. And keep in mind, this boring brown cover was really all I had to work with. And here it is. Here's my lap book. I'm calling it Myrtie's Naturalist book. And the reason being is that a lot of the journals that I make are gifts for people, so I have them in mind when I'm making it. It kind of gives me direction. It helps me to curate a theme that's very focused, and I tend to get out of focus a lot. So I decided I needed to have a character in mind that I'm making this for. My cousin, who is also a very talented bookmaker, in fact, she makes her books from scratch using recycled materials, but they're all completely nude books. In other words, they're sketchbooks and writing journals, things like that, but there's no decoration inside. They're completely blank, and they're made with leather, and she makes her own book boxes, and she does beautiful bindings. Her studio is called Brown Bag and String, and I will link her studio in my video as well. Anyway, she inspired the character in this because she loves vintage like I do, and she sent me a package of calling cards from the early 1900s. And this one calling card I just really loved, and the name of the girl on it was Myrtie Ball. she's in here, so I'll show it to you. And I sort of used her as the character that inspired this book. So in my mind, Myrtie was a young lady, maybe in her late teens, who really enjoyed going out in the woods, maybe a little bit of a private person, a quiet person who could sit alone in the woods and really feel at peace, watching nature and taking notes and noticing the world around her. And I kind of feel the same way. I'm mostly inspired and at peace when I walk in the woods, and I love all the little details and always have, and thought this might be how she is as well. And she spends her time studying the things around her, but in the day they didn't have smartphones and all this literature around for her to continually learn what was in her environment. So she started collecting papers and research that she could put in this lap book and take out in the field with her and study the natural world around her. So that was where I started off from. And as you saw, I had the original book. I just used patina acrylic paint and some gilding wax, buffed it out a couple of times, let the texture of the book kind of shine through and get that patina that makes it look a little old. I added some muslin and some vintage laces that I dyed with some alcohol inks, and I did the back as well. Put on some brass corners and a nice little pocket in the front for Myrtie to be able to stick little things in. You know, of course, I'm a huge mushroom person, so I had to include as many mushrooms as possible. A little fern and, you know, a recycled card. I made a dangle for the back, which basically says breathe on it. And I think of it as, you know, that's where Myrtie can breathe, is outside in nature. And it's just, you know, dyed sari silk and some charms and a little stone heart, just some little baubles that she might collect. So when we open it up, there's two sides, the insides of the panels that I added. Oh, I forgot, there is a latch on it so that everything stays in place when she's carrying it in her bag. And the inside, this envelope is going to be on the two grommet holes that we have in the project that Nik had in hers on the spine. So some people put journals in it. I happen to put, you know, an envelope in it. So I'm going to do one side at a time because there's so much in it. And I think I might have to move some of these things here. My little gnome. Bye-bye. Okay. So I took some vintage pictures from some old books that have, actually this might have been a digi-kit that I downloaded, these two mushrooms, and just sort of put them on the cover with some lace and some of the fabric. And on the inside, I have the first section. I have a lucky penny that Myrtie, you know, put in there. I was actually looking for a wheat penny, but I couldn't find one. That would have been a little bit more appropriate for this time period. But, you know, it still works. And I put it in there permanently. It doesn't come off. It's glued in and then stitched over so that it stays in all the time. And she can just tuck something in there. She can decorate with some stamps and a little envelope, a little document envelope that she can put little bits and pieces in. And here I have some pages from a vintage field guide, trees that are in this area that Myrtie lives in and that she can refer to when she wants to identify them. I figured she ripped those pages out and put them in here so that it's too much to take all the books with you. So you just take the pages of the things you need. And then this flips out. And in here is where she keeps information about wildflowers in the area. And she has a little ruler oops, here it is. I got this vintage ruler from my friend Diane. And, you know, every naturalist should have a ruler on them so they can measure things when they're taking notes. Then she has a little section here that's all divided into little cards, like specimen cards. So she could maybe start writing flowers or frogs or birds, and she could categorize them and then log which ones she's seen on which days, and she can file them in this little pocket right here. Of course, when you're doing a tutorial and you're trying to lean over the camera, it's very hard to get everything back inside. Anybody who's done this knows that. I can just put that back later. She has a little pocket up here for some additional ephemera, little pretty tags, because why not, you know, let's make it pretty at least. And she can write what the section's for here. Oh, I'm going out of frame. Then over here, there's an envelope, and like Nik, I really loved that little tip of putting a washer on the inside on one side and then a magnet on this side. So I did the same thing to magnetize that so it doesn't fall open. And in here we placed some things for Myrtie. These are like some of the frogs, actually some of the frogs that are local to where she lives, which is, you know, where I live as well. And she has those so she can identify them. And again, so much easier than taking a whole book that doesn't really apply to you into the field. And then, like myself, she is a avid mushroomer. So she has her little cheat sheet of how things are classified so that she can take her notes on what she finds and then identify them later. You know, identifying mushrooms accurately is very important, especially if you're going to eat them. And then a trail guide goes in here so that she doesn't get lost, but chances are she knows the woods better than anyone. When we go to this section, what I designed here was a little notepad for her to, you know, write her observations in, as well as a collection envelope for whatever it is that she wants to put in there. Tea-dyed, beautiful piece of botanical paper that's sewn in. But what I did is I designed it in a way that it has two grommets here and some elastic. And what can happen is she can have her field note book put in and slid in through the elastic, and then when the paper runs out, she can just put more in, and then it slides back into this slot. So I really wanted it to be something that she could continue to grow with her, but not be, again, a big bulky notebook that weighs so much. There's a little tiny envelope here with a fabric closure and a little mushroom on it. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is the original calling card that was gifted to me by my cousin Sue, and that's Myrtie. And I just thought, you know what, I just thought that was beautiful. What a beautiful calling card, and really the inspiration for this book. So then, as we close this side, we can move over, and here's the pocket. There's a couple little things in here that can be written on. And then inside is this pocket for all of these charts that have all the little ecosystems that are around within walking distance of where Myrtie lives, and all the animals she can find, so that she can identify and look for the type of animals that live around where she is walking, as well as a chart of sizes of eggs so that she can also use that in her notes. When you're a naturalist, you should be making as many specimen notes as possible and making them accurate. So these two envelopes carry all her little cheat sheets. It's tied in on a piece of twine with a little key. And then we go to this side of the lap book. This comes from a vintage book, and I absolutely love this image, and it is glued in and stitched on this side of the book, and it opens here. And this is, well, I'll get to that. This was the same type of flip that Nik showed us how to do, which I thought was so clever. and really so much fun to make. So I have in here a little slide of a bug that Myrtie's been trying to find and she hasn't yet. So she just took this one slide so she can bring it with her wherever she goes. She doesn't want to miss out. And some pretty stamps from some things that she's gotten in the mail. Information on lichen and mushrooms. A key to a map to New Hampshire, which is right here. And that's where I live, and that's where Myrtie is, so she can kind of write what she sees and where she is at the time. And there's pockets and little places to stow things, notes and feathers, things she collects. Some more diagrams and information on things she might see. Again, more places to tuck things. And then I've included some really nice rice paper, again from my cousin Sue, that she can make little sketches on. That goes in the back here. Come on, there you go. So then on this side, it opens up, and I have lots of other little places for her to add things. I stopped myself because I was adding so many things that I wouldn't be able to close this, and I really wanted it to be functional. So here is, just a few little things that she has tucked. And then this flips up. I don't know if it'll be able to go on camera. There's two of them, and there's like a little belly band in there that I've sewn twice so that things can get put in there and stay really nice and tight. They won't fall out. And there's two little envelopes here, little tuck spots, little pockets. And most of everything you see here is not any kind of printed paper. There's a couple little bits of scrapbook paper from probably Tim Holtz. You'll see some here and there. That's probably the most of what I used was from him, but the rest is vintage book pages and images from old books that I've been collecting in my own stash. This is my favorite. I made it out of a chocolate bar, a Lindt chocolate bar, and it's got this kind of structured little box that I've secured. And what I liked about it is I thought it would be this wonderful place to put things that maybe she didn't want to get crushed, like maybe some birch bark or something. When she's walking, she can slide it in there, and it would protect it a little bit. And I put a magnet in here, and this is the top of a vintage calendar which I sewed on, and because it has a metal grommet, when it hits the magnet it keeps it closed, which I just kind of love. But what I also designed was this great little folder, and inside the folder is her plant checkoff list, I guess. Well, it's more than just plants. It has lots of things. It has footprints that she can identify, and then again some terms for her note taking. But then there's lists of all the characteristic plants of all the ecosystems that she lives around, and she can check those off or write next to them where she found them, so she can keep track. Ooh, I can't open it. Of all the plants that she comes across. And again, she could just take this out with her if she didn't want to take the whole lap book. And it folds up nice and neat, like that. And if she wants, she can slide it into here. Oops. And shut it. And when she opens it, she can simply slide it out with that tab. So that was just a little extra thing. Again, I couldn't stop myself. I kept saying I was done, and then I would make something else and make something else. So that's why I finally said stop. So now this opens up. Let me close this section. And this section opens, and in here we have a envelope from the 1950s, and probably way past Myrtie's time. So maybe she's a time traveler too, who knows. And it's just been embellished to be made into a little pocket. And there's a little pocket here. And a little animal guide here for all the footprints. I thought that would be really handy for her to have. And then I made this little document folder envelope out of a piece of craft paper. It opens up, and I thought it could be a really good, actually it was an old envelope, a really good collection spot for leaves. So she could keep the collected leaves apart from getting crushed in other parts of the book. And she could just pin it in here. And this can have some taller things that she doesn't want crushed. And she could simply just clip that in like that. And I think that is it. I think those are all the nooks and crannies. So when I close it, I just fold this side in. And this gets folded like that. And then it gets latched. And the little things that she's collected can just go right here in the pocket. And that, my friends, is Myrtie's Naturalist Lapbook. I hope you've enjoyed looking at it. Thank you for viewing and taking the time and indulging me. I really appreciate it. And I had a ball. I had a ball making this, and a friend of mine said, "What are you going to do with it now?" And I do use a lot of the things I make, but really this is really just something special. Sort of, what do they call them? They call them theme journals or things like that Nik does and Wendy does, and they're really just story books that you hope you can share with someone someday. And I've really enjoyed sharing her story with you and how I made it, and I thank you for stopping by. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.